This is a very, very good question. So I'm actually going to explain this because it's a follow-up to my video about communication as a neurodivergent and frustration socially, and I think it could be really helpful. So in reference to my own behaviors, there were times when I was a really, really shitty friend, and it was because A, I was overstimulated in certain situations, which would turn me into just a short-fused bitch, for lack of a better term, and I would blow up and be really emotional and explode and just be overwhelmed, and I didn't know why. For my own behaviors, I was also a very shitty friend sometimes, and it usually came from not saying things that needed to be said or not doing things that needed to be said, and a lot of that just came from, as I talked about, the total differences in communication, and me very often feeling betrayed because they didn't communicate as frankly and clearly as I did, and so I often felt like they were misleading me, which very often they were, but neurotypicals just aren't as earnest and honest and clear with their communication, and I didn't understand that. I said everything at face value, and I thought everyone else was doing everything else at face value, and if they didn't, I was just like, well, they're a crappy person, cut them off. Now, for feeling like a zoo animal, and how they were treating me, making fun of me, that's a little bit more abstract, and it's harder to explain because it's still hard for me to fully conceptualize the situation. So very often there were times when I would be really into something and really excited about something and talking about it and telling them about it, and what I thought was my friends being interested in that kind of thing, most of the time they were actually like, weird. I always got the label of being like the smart girl. I was in a gifted program, so a lot of this as well stemmed from, I always had friends around me who were always like, you're so smart, you're so smart, you're so smart. They loved how smart I was, and they liked to have me around to use me for like information and things like that and know-how, but they also kind of ostracized me for it, and they would make fun of me, call me weird, and call me a nerd and all this other kind of stuff, and I thought it was just like what friends did. As far as the zoo animal thing, it's because like I realize now as a neurodivergent person, I would kind of just bull through a china shop through things that neurotypicals would probably not do, because not that I was confident, I was just like, I want this thing, or I'm going to do this thing, or this thing interests me, and I would just toddle into it, and they didn't really have like the confidence and the skills to do that, so they would watch me do these things, and if I did them well, they liked being attached to me because I did them well, but again, they were just observing. There was not really any support while I did these things, and there was not really stable communication or like celebration for it. It was just like, let's have proximity to this. And yeah, again, all of that kind of stuff fed into my own crappy behaviors as their friend, because I would pick up on these things and feel these things, but I didn't know what was happening, but I could feel that they were happening, and I could tell that the patterns weren't right because they weren't the same patterns that they did with each other. And so I would be really, really frustrated, just not understand why they wouldn't open up or like let me fully open up or whatever. So I would get frustrated and blow up the friendship. And by blow up, I mean walk away and just act like I never existed at all.